Do you know, they've been trying to get me to sit in that throne all week. The answer is still no. I hope you're going to ask some good questions. I don't mind how awkward you think they are. I'll have a bash at answering them. You've not got any? Can I go home now?
Sorry. Next. Hi, Maxine. Thank you so much for taking the time out to do this, first off, and I'm sure everyone's chuffed to pieces that you're here. If you could rewind time to when you first started, would you do anything differently? And second part of the question would be, what advice would you give now to people trying to set up a coven or trying to do something that's more community-driven in this world? Don't hate me, that's two questions, sorry.
No. Would I do anything differently? Oh, yes. Lots and lots of things differently. But then I wouldn't have the confidence. I didn't have the confidence then when I was young and at the famous time in the 60s in Notting Hill Gate. I was the shy, reserved one, which I think I benefited from because I learned a lot. I watched and saw a lot and didn't have that much to say. And that's why I learned. So would I change things? I'd like to think I could change things with knowledge I have now. And I think I would have been more secretive. What was the next part of the question?
Why would you have been more secretive, though? Because one of the reasons that you are so respected and legendary is because you weren't, and you were very brave at that time.
I think as time's gone by, I've become more involved with ritual practice and with the magical work, and I don't find that comfortable with the public life. It was Alex that was the flamboyant one who couldn't help but attract publicity. And of course it was quite handy to have a size 10 on his arm. And I very rarely said anything anyway. But it made me more observant. But I grew, I think I always had a love of the mystery, occult-wise, spiritually. And then as time went by, I became more involved with ritual and seeing how to work ritual. I dislike empty ritual. I dislike ritual just for ritual's sake. Everything for me in ritual has to have a meaning, and it has to have a desire, a curiosity as to what you're going to get out of that ritual. So I don't think you can combine that with television studios or film studios.
That's advice in itself, I think, really. But is there anything you would add to that for people who are trying to set up a coven or trying to set up a community around themselves that we're leaning?
There are so many covens nowadays. There's a coven for everybody. There's a coven for those of them that want counselling. There's a coven for those that want to feel part of a community. And then you get the covens of the shadows, who actually want to be a coven to do the magical work and not be family. That's another thing I don't like very much nowadays. It comes across all the time about, oh, it's family, cis, bro. My sister and my brother, my relationship with them is totally different to my relationship with those that I work in a circle with. The circle, the bond that you have with your initiates is totally different to any other bond. It goes deeper, it goes higher, it goes lower. You don't have to like the people in the circle, but that bond is always there. Did that answer? I'm notorious for rambling, so forgive me.
Who's got the next question? Hello, I'm Lucas from Poland. I'm a high priest, an Alexandrian high priest, and also I'm working for in the academic university. I'm half Polish, half French. My English is not good enough, so I will ask my high priest, who is better in English, to translate.
Okay. Hello.
Chciałem się spytać.
I would like to ask you,
Skąd przyszedł pomysł na opublikowanie tego nowego wydania?
where did this idea of publishing the new version of lectures came from?
Tym bardziej, że zostałem poproszony kiedyś o przetłumaczenie tych wykładów.
Especially that, like, at one point I was asked to translate the previous version of the lectures into Polish. And we know that there have been some misunderstandings connected to that, to the publishing of that book. But still, we would like to give you a copy of our, his translation of that book. And we were just we were curious about the reasons of getting another copy, another version of the book right now. And especially since the Polish version with the pictures and the new version are kind of similar, but without the comments and the additional content.
Okay. Oh. Thank you very much. That's very sweet of you. I won't understand a word of it, you know. Oh, thank you.
Similar to the original.
Thank you. You asked...
so the question primarily is why a new version of the lectures now?
Somebody, who I won't name, suggested it and was rather pushy in it. And then... And I thought it's only going to be the lectures again. And then she said, you're doing the commentary on it, aren't you? Am I? Yes. And then I sort of went very quiet for a while, hoping that she'd forget, and she didn't. And so that's how it came about, to do a commentary. Because when the lectures were created, it was... and I read them, and it's so simple. There's nothing complicated. There's nothing big-minded. There's no big names. And the craft has changed enormously. It's evolved since then. And then I thought, well, actually, it's interesting to look back and see how we practiced. I was talking to somebody the other day. When we first started, we would work in a 9-foot circle. And it's very tight in a 9-foot circle. And then we realised that actually if we could cast a 9-foot circle, we could cast a 20-foot circle. So we got rid of that and things. But it was change, and you'd go into you'd get changed there, or you'd disrobe there. But nowadays, houses are warmer, and you get changed in the bathroom and get your robes on, and it's all so much more sedate and kinder than it was. When we'd work outside, we didn't have plastic bags in those days. We had brown paper bags. You'd take your clothes off and you'd be freezing cold. There's photographs in some of the books of us working on the moors in Manchester, and it's snow. And then and there's one photograph, and we're all naked walking down towards a circle site. And we're all one side, like this, walking one side. And we'd had a circle previously, before the photographs had been taken. And there'd been a scourging, a purification, because in those days we used to do a purification at the beginning of the ritual. And because it was so cold, we'd all got red bottoms on that side. So I don't know how I got onto that. There you go. It's changed dramatically. Now we've got black plastic bags, so when we go and work outside, our clothes are contained within black plastic bags and don't look like little heaps of brown carrier bags everywhere. So everything has changed. Everything's become more sophisticated, which enables us, I think, to work more closely with our ritual. It enables us to be more focused on our ritual. It's not a desperate attempt to get into that circle and start the work and get out of it because it's cold. I mean, I'm a great believer in long johns when you're working outside in the winter. But I'm also a great believer in working naked outside in the winter, but you can do both and stay warm all the time. Next question.
Oh, lots suddenly.
Hello, I'd like to thank you for what you've done in the past and bring the craft to the modern world. Did you always realise that the visual image of the craft, you and Alex, would be so influential upon the modern world? I mean, it's so prevalent within books and all this, and it's like a credit to you what you've done, that getting your kit off in front of everyone and being out there and showing the craft of what it was that drew people to what is a fantastic mystery religion that you have brought to the modern world, along from Gerald.
I think Alex knew. I remember one circle in Clanacard in the 60s, and there were a couple of gentlemen in the circle. And they started to have a row in cakes and wine. I don't know what the row was about. And Alex said, "We'll have no fisticuffs in this circle." He said, "It's in years to come you'll have written books about it." And these were just young men. And years later, of course, they'd written the books. And he knew it was going to be big. And similar to Gerald, he was prone to exaggeration and would say, thousands of witches. There weren't thousands of witches at all, but that was his way. For Alex, everything was bigger, and he knew it would grow. I didn't care. My job wasn't to make the craft grow. It still isn't. I wanted, after initiation, I think most witches get the desire to tell the world because of that wonderful feeling that you have. And of course you can't. You're not allowed to tell anybody what's going on, or the deeper side of the mysteries. Because not for any reason other than to keep it sacred. We keep it secret to keep it sacred. And I think the older I get, the more I want to keep it secret.
Thank you. Okay. What qualities would you look for in a sincere seeker of initiation into our priesthoods? And would you say that's changed at all?
I think the witches have changed. The people who become witches. Now more people are initiated that, to be honest with you, I wouldn't initiate. I don't think they'd be tough enough, daring enough, curious enough to work those rituals. I still believe that there is intense ritual work within the craft that's developed and evolved over the years because we want it, and Alexandrians are notorious for wanting power. They want to experience that power. They want to use it, and they want to direct it, and they want to get a result from it. I think a few years ago, there were open rituals, and like in America, they have open rituals all the time. And it's a bit like Ring of Roses. It's not, to me, what magic is. The magic of the craft. And that I hold very dear. Do I want it to spread? I don't care. And I don't think we should care. Some people say, where do you think the craft's going? And some Americans say, what is it? May the gods preserve the craft. And I say, may the craft preserve the gods. Did I answer your question? Yeah.
In the previous talk, we could see that Gerald Gardner was kind of presented as almost like a proto-countercultural figure in the age before, you know, the rock and roll thing developed. And I guess you found yourself more in the epicenter of that movement. Can you describe what it felt like? Is there a point where you're thinking this is growing, but maybe this is out of control, or were you comfortable with it? Or
I think when you cast your circle, the last thing in your mind is other circles. You're totally focused on your work. And yes, Alex loved the publicity, and he'd be there, you know, the camera's rolling, he'd come to life. But that wasn't magic. That was charisma. I loved the talk on Gerald Gardner. In fact, I'm falling in love with Gerald Gardner now. But I think that Gardnerian, Alexandrian witchcraft, I don't know for sure because I've never been in a Gardnerian coven. But I think they're different. The focuses are different. As I say, Alexandrians are greedy for power. They're greedy for that energy. They're greedy for the magic. But not all of them. Alexandrianism is changing. The craft will constantly evolve. Its rituals will evolve. People will find a better way. They'll find a way of, for instance, in the Temple of the Mother, we analysed our rituals. And we'd keep the diaries for 2 years to make sure that we kept a diary of our experiments as to what helped make the magic more potent, or the power more potent, the ways of directing that power, the ways of getting those experiences without the drugs. I think a circle is timeless. I think the craft is timeless. And in each one of our circles, we're not connected to one another unless we're going to do a ritual that several covens will take part in at the same time, like big healing rituals or banishing rituals, banishing of evil. And there is evil in the world, and we should be doing it more often. So how did it feel? It just felt actually really quite normal. I think most of my life, even before I was involved with the craft, I was involved in spiritual movements, and that working towards the consciousness of soul and spirit has always been part of my life and still is.
Who's next? Maxine, first of all, actually, I just want to say thank you. In large measure, actually, you are the reason why I'm a Wiccan. Over 50 years ago, I stumbled across Hans Holzer's Book of Witchcraft, and I was absolutely fascinated to see that people could celebrate spirituality in the way that was depicted in that book. It had a large impact on my life. My question for you is, obviously there's a rebellious streak that runs through witchcraft. So if we think of something like the Vangelo delle Streghe, which of course, you know, whether or not you believe it's an actual artifact from the time or not, nonetheless, Aradia is rebellious against the rich and entitled. And it seems to me that Wicca, of course, is a nature-based religion, and that currently the rich and entitled are rapidly destroying our ecosystems, and some might argue the goddess Gaia herself. And I wondered if you would comment on that, and what advice you might have for witches living in the 21st century around those kinds of things, in terms of practice and overall philosophies as well.
Gosh, I don't think it's the rich that's causing the problem totally. I think we're all responsible for the things that are going wrong with for Mother Earth. What advice? I mean, I'm an avid recycler. I do all the things that I'm told to do, and I would like to do more, but I'm selfish enough to would still come by taxi, and I'm selfish enough still to drive to Wales. So there are things, are we prepared to give them up completely? I think we each have to ask that question of ourselves. I don't think anybody else can judge another person. We can try to persuade them to value Mother Earth. I remember again in the 70s, the Temple of the Mother, we would go and clear streams of rubbish, practical craft. We were great at it, really had a great time, lots of fun. But I think that the craft has a conscience about Mother Earth. It is there, it's our energy, it's what we do with our magic. We bring it, we earth it, we change it. I don't think working in a circle is going to change it. I think it's practical humanity that has to change it, and changing our ways and get our inventors inventing ways for us to be able to live the life of luxury that we're living now. Perhaps we ought to be doing some magic for the inventors.
Who's next? Next question? Yes.
You've mentioned several times, well, or I've interpreted, that Alex had a job, which sort of implies that you had a job. And I wonder at that time...
Alex had a what?
You said that that was Alex's job, right?
He chose it.
Well, yeah, but I wondered then that sort of implies that you either chose not to have a job or you had a job within that space at that time with the chaos of film crews and publicity and stuff.
Well, I don't quite understand your question now.
So Alex had a job to bring the craft through media to a wider audience.
Yeah.
What was your role, your job, do you think?
I was a number 10. I was a size 10 on his arm.
Good job. Does that answer your question?
And I think it was time. I think the craft is evolving. It's still evolving. You know, there are different people coming up and they're putting different things forward. I mean, there are a lot of things I don't like about it. You know, the latest book, you know, candle magic, stroke your candle 10 times. Well, God knows. And they're selling this rubbish and people are buying it. And so there's a great big money-making thing going on. It'll go, it'll pass. And the craft will survive. There will always be people that are interested in the art magical. The rituals have developed. You know, Gardner started something. He was there at the right time. Alex came along. He was there at the right time. And it was an enabling. There are lots. If you think about it, the craft is still very small, percentage-wise. You know, the population's gone up. And the percentage of people involved with magic is probably the same as it was 200 years ago.
Next question. You're getting off very lightly.
I know.
No more questions?
I thought I was going to be asked some awkward ones.
Here's one.
Me again. It's very easy to look back at the time when this was all emerging and you and Alex were working together and separately and really glamorize it. Was there any times when you just thought, "Oh, sod this for a game of soldiers, it's all getting a bit much"?
Oh, I did regularly. I remember one day I was putting my children the afternoon nap and settling, and Alex said, "Can you come in? Can you just want to get a picture from the back of you?" I said, "Yes, fine, I'll put such and such a robe on." No, can you pose naked? "No, Alex, I bloody well can't." But he, very persuasive, so I went in, and then somebody said at one point it was the most photographed bottom in Britain. No, I didn't enjoy it. But Alex did. He just blossomed on it, and perhaps that's what was needed. I didn't enjoy it, and if it had been left to me, and it's all right, you're all saying thank you, but I don't believe I did anything. And because if it had been my way, Cobham would have been secret. Nobody would have known about it. nobody. And I still think today, I think you asked, what are the things within, what do you look for in the person who's seeking initiation? When they ask for initiation, the first response is, what have you got to offer the craft? And what do you think the craft has to offer you? And more times than not, you find that they're not suited. I believe that the majority, the people who make the real curious witch and successful witch are few and far between. I think there's a lot of mediocre witches who love to be part of a coven and love to go, they're a bit like women's knitting guilds. Not meaning to be insulting, and I'm sure I can't knit, and I don't want to, and I don't want to belong to a coven that isn't really working hard at the magic. You know, covens meet so rarely nowadays. I mean, our coven used to meet every night. You know, throughout the week at the Temple of the Mother, there'd be a night for hermetics, there'd be a night for healing, and the people used to queue up the basement steps and along Clanricarde Gardens, people that were coming for healing. And we couldn't do it unless we had a medic, a GP there, because we always wanted verification and we always wanted to make sure that we weren't going to do any harm, because a healer can harm. But we got fantastic results, really good. And but every night was taken up. And the only night that we had off was Sunday. And then people never stopped knocking on the door, and the phone never stopped going. And there were people that wanted to worship the goddess, but they didn't want to be initiated. And so we devised a ritual so that the general public could come. And we had to stop it because it got too big, and we couldn't do it. And we weren't, if we went to somewhere in a public place, it would lose its energy, it would lose its power. So that kind of work and energy that goes into your magic practice takes a great amount of curiosity and self-discipline. And in the craft, people have always said, oh, Maxine was such a disciplinarian. I wasn't, but I did demand self-discipline. And I didn't tolerate fools. Unless you were a lot of fun.
Just following on from that question, I'd be curious to know what you believe you bring to the craft, which is unique to you.
Unique?
Well, what do you bring to the craft? Other than a nice bottom?
Yeah. Well, it used to be. It's going a bit saggy now. I hope that I teach well. I love teaching a good group, a curious group. I can't be doing with witches that can't be bothered to know or want to know. Teaching. And also, I love it when the witch goes, oh, that's it, I've got it, that's the magic. When it's suddenly sus, it's just there.
I always thought that your quietness, your closed mouth, your bearing was imposing, and in all fairness to Alex, a short, bald, bandy man would never have led any sort of movement. Nobody would have followed him. But he was that Promethean figure that steals the fire from heaven and was absolutely mercurial, and he was completely trustworthy on one level and completely untrustworthy on another. But you gave majesty to your nakedness. You embodied the stateliness of a goddess.
And so given sweet that of you.
No, and because given that you temperamentally did not want to be there naked in the Sunday papers every time, but I also think that the Alexandrians, because they were in the papers every week wearing nothing but their Egyptian makeup, They put the word witchcraft back on people's lips and they recreated the movement. And then Stuart came along, Stuart Farrer, sent along as a silly season journalist. They'll get an article on him. But he knew the questions to ask. And he then wrote the books. And then it went on from there because through you two, witchcraft in a modern form was able to be solidified. And it was able to be worked. It was able to be used. And as with everything, it's down to your own integrity whether you do it well or badly after that. But as I say, I think you should be applauded because you still are not a show-off. So, sorry, it's not a question, it's a comment.
Thank you, Geraldine. Let's do that applause. Who's next?
Hello, Maxine.
Hello, Darren.
Hello.
Is this going to be a good one?
Yeah, it's going to be good. I promise. I promise it's a good one. Genuine question. What do you think the future of the craft will be? And secondary question, what would you like it to be?
I can't answer either one of those because what
Well,
I
you can
like
answer
it
the
to
second
be,
one, come
what I like it to be, is what I have and experience now. I can't say what I think the craft should be for you. It's not my job to do that, and it's not. I don't believe it's anybody's job to do that. I think as the craft grows, or as initiations happen, new covens happen, old covens stop working, die off. It changes. It changes. The atmosphere changes about it. I think if I hope for anything, is that the worship continues and the magic comes through from the worship. What I don't like is empty ritual. And I think there is an awful lot of empty ritual now. But I think that will stop because the witches will get more demanding. And I think one of the problems with Alexandrian witchcraft was its growth and the fact that it didn't have the good teachers. And the thing when we were talking about this the other day, when people go away to start their own group, the first thing they say is, we're going to practice, we're going to celebrate the Sabbaths on the day. We're going to work outside and we're going to work naked. It didn't take them long to give that up. That's 3 months but working inside round about the nearest Saturday, etc., etc. But the focus on the magic and the sacredness of the magic, I think it will burn through as it grows, because witches will get more demanding. They will be, I don't want this. I want to touch the magic. I want to feel it in my solar plexus. I want to feel it in my heart. I want to know it in my head. And I want to get the results. And I want to use the magic to good things, whether it's contributing to Mother Earth or making people just want to invent things to make Mother Earth survive and in her beauty so that we can experience it. That's what I can say. Apart from that, it's not my job to care. My job is in my circle.
Craft is what happens in circle. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Next question.
Hi, Maxine. You said you wanted an embarrassing question.
Go on then.
So I'll just put it back to you, really. What's the most embarrassing thing that's happened to you, either in circle or in the craft or something like that?
The ones that are really embarrassing, I'm not prepared to tell you. I think we were having a grand circle, very highfalutin and ritualistic. And I was at the altar and I could feel the power raising behind me. And I thought, this is going too fast. It's building up too quickly. And this is years ago, so not everybody will remember, but I said, and I was in this beautiful, beautiful robe, and the high priest was in his fine linen. And I said, came out of ritual tone and said, you know, I feel just like Fanny Craddock. And I don't think there's many embarrassing things, apart from the really awful ones. No, I think because we're trained in being conscious of our actions and how each action within our rituals have to be focused. You can trip up. My hair's been on fire several times. Yeah, I can't think of anything. Well, as I say, not things I'm prepared to admit to.
Next question.
If I may ask, in the early days of the craft, was there ever a conscious desire to differentiate between Alexandrian and Gardnerian craft? And do you think now we have drawn closer together than back in the early days?
I think in the early days there was every intention of coming away from it, from Gardnerian. I had no idea, as I say, still don't know. People go from Alexandrian, and there's now this dual initiation business, which, again, I disapprove of totally. I think it depreciates one from the other. We stopped doing the purifications at the beginning. We stopped the use of the scourge to the extent that had always been used, but so it'd been or I'd been told, had been used in Gardnerian circles. Purification, we put the responsibility on the initiates that entered that circle. So we changed a lot of things, and then when Alex left to go to Bexhill, the Temple of the Mother really focused on ritual, really focused on what makes it work, what stops it working. It doesn't mean to say that every ritual is going to be a good ritual, because if they were good all the time, they'd get really boring. And so I think there are a lot of differences. Also, the Gardnerians tell me when they come to work with us that our rituals are different. I think we focus, as I say, more on the magic, more on the power, more on the energy. And on clear ritual, we don't. I was saying to somebody the other day, I really dislike second degree initiation. It's a reenactment, and it really bores me to tears to watch this ritual. And I think they should be on stage. If it was on stage, it would be great. Or if it was in a ballet, it would be beautiful. The Gardnerians do it fantastically. There's a house in Wales in the next village to mine. And when they have a second and third, the whole house is decorated. And the descent of the goddess is full enactment, and it's magnificent. But I'm looking for the power in it, not the power of the visual. I'm looking for what can I do with this magic? What can I do with this power? What magic? Actually, I've got it all planned, what magic I'm going to do. But those differences, I think they're there in a big way. I don't think one's better than the other. I think one suits, as I said right at the beginning, there's witchcraft for everybody now. It's just finding the coven that suits you.
Next question.
Hi, Maxine. What would you say to those people that are distracted from the work by lots of infighting and bickering?
Have I got opinions on that now? There's so much viciousness in the craft. Judgmental nastiness, judgmental thou shalt not. And they forget, they're like, somebody picks on somebody that's been a bad boy. And somebody else has to join in saying how bad they are. instead of going to the person and saying, "Are you bad?" And that person will probably say, "Well, I used to be, but I'm an initiate now, so I'm really working on it." And in the meantime, he's got to put up with all this horrible stuff that goes on. Some of these witches, you know, they're just there to be judges because they've no power in their own circle and they've got nothing better to do. So all the bickering and backbiting should stop. It's totally unnecessary, and it's nobody's business if somebody's being bad. Let them get on with it. And just as a little side of thought, there's a case going on now where the witch world has gone a bit crazy, all for one man, who used to be a really bad bugger, who's become an initiate and is really trying to be a good man. He doesn't have to try, he's got a really good heart, it's just he can't help but be nasty if somebody prods him incorrectly, so he's very vicious. But all that energy these people are using to bicker and backbite, what is the matter with them? I know what it is. They haven't got enough knitting needles.
Any other questions?
You'll think of them when you get home.
Or you'll all go up to Maxine after we've said that's the end.
Yes.
Oh, we have one.
I have to speak up. I'm interested in what you said about secrecy and sacredness, and also about the idea of serving non-priest class people's interested in worshipping the gods, the goddess, and so forth. Is there a responsibility on the witch to provide space for those people?
No.
And as a sort of follow-up to that, then, how could
I think because I don't think we have a responsibility to do it, but I think because we were in a position to do it at the time and felt not a responsibility, but we wanted to do it. We were asked so many times, how can I go about? And rather than say, well, go to your nearest stream and worship there or wherever, this was a ritual that's devised for them to be able to worship the goddess. And we enjoyed it. We enjoyed it very much, but then it got too big. And so, no, but we hope that I think that people appreciated it at the time. And at one time, there was talk of having a public temple for just that. But then it wouldn't have been witchcraft, and we wouldn't have been able to show them witchcraft because we keep it secret. We keep it secret to keep it sacred, but also, if you didn't keep those inner rituals secret, you'd get people dabbling with them and they'd have nervous breakdowns. And they do. You get people that are in circles and they're not strong enough, or they're too strong, and it can have a bad effect on them. And that's one of the dangers of the occult and working with the occult. That's why you need good teachers. You need good guides. You need to say, we don't do that, because if you do that, there's going to be a problem. And that's why in Alexandrian craft, we developed techniques to safeguard. I remember one witch, his name was Andrew, and he was one of these brilliant, brilliant minds. And in those days, working computers, you used to walk through them. And he was top job. And he'd been in a circle, and some of the work that we were doing was when Alex was there. And he went insane. He took an axe and he smashed up a very important part of the computer, etc., etc. And was on a 28-day section. And this got me wondering, how do I develop a technique to protect the person in the circle that may become disturbed by a ritual or a meditation or something? And I worked on the Golden Cross of Equilibrium, that is a focus in the solar plexus that you can bring into action at any time just to maintain that balance. It can be used for all sorts of things, but this was one of the things that I developed to make it safe. And yet you'll always get some idiot that will come along and say, well, I'll do it just a little bit differently. And they pay the price. And there's a story of before we moved to London, and a man called Norman Letchford had wanted initiation, and he asked Alex for initiation, and he said, I want you to initiate me. And I said, all right. And Norman said, and I want to be dedicated to the god Pan. Anyway, Alex went ahead with this initiation, knowing something nagging in him, really. He knew it was wrong. And a few days later, we were walking in Chorlton-cum-Hardy in Manchester, passing Norman's house. And there was an ambulance outside, and men in white coats. And we went in, and there was Norman, naked, with threepenny bits materialising, and Wall's pork sausages hitting him. He was badly bruised. But it had caused panic, and it had created this phenomena. And that was why Alex became absolutely adamant that the craft initiation was male to female, female to male. And now you're getting male to male and calling it witchcraft. Well, it's their witchcraft, it's not mine. And it wasn't Alex's. But you see, this keeping things secret and knowing what is bad practice and what is good practice, you always have to safeguard the idiot. Did I answer your question?
You did, thank you.
Any more questions?
Hi, Maxine. First of all, thank you for taking the time to answer all of our questions. And I am curious on the... you've also been involved in Egyptian mysteries, Egyptian magic. If it's okay to share, what drove you there, and anything important that you would like to share with us that you got out of it? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. It happened. It just happened. You know, it's like I was very young, I was involved with Subud, with Pak Subu. I was the youngest person in the Western world to be opened in Subud. I think it said in there, I was 15, I wasn't, I was 14. My Egyptian initiation. My mother was quite bizarre. She was like a yacht in full sail, and she had very interesting people around her. My father thought it was, I didn't like him, he was a bad man. But he was into health and fitness, and I had to become very fit to go through the initiation I went through. But it happened. It wasn't I want to be initiated into Egypt. I mean, the person that got me interested in some of the practices, yes, I was interested, but I wasn't particularly, it wasn't something I wanted to go through. And if I'd have known, well, if my mother had known, which I think she did, but she was bizarre as well, I wouldn't allow my children to go through that. So, did I want it? No. Did I go through it? Yes. Did it do me any good? Not particularly. I think the love of my life is the craft and witchcraft. The occult, yes, but it's practiced within a witchcraft circle.
Going once.
Mentioning your Egyptian stuff has reminded me of Bernard Ball and Mary Rands, who's still going strong on 2 crutches, but she's still going strong, And did you have time to develop a sort of an inner circle of reliable people, as it were? Or was it just so fast-flowing that people came and went and, you know, you couldn't catch up with them, couldn't hold on to them in a way?
I think the Temple of the Mother always developed its inner circle. And it was always about 6 or 7. And they were the core of it. And they were the ones that investigated. They were the ones that were prepared to, okay, we've consecrated the water, what's the difference? How do we find out what the difference is? And so all the tests would be done, and you get the scientific minds coming along and doing their work. It sounds terribly serious, whereas actually we had so much fun, so much laughter. But it was our lives, it was our love. The couples that had children would be in a circle, and my bed was 7 foot wide and 7 foot long. And we'd put all the children to bed and think, oh, they've gone to sleep now, and then we go into the circle, and if you come out of the circle and they weren't expecting it, they'd be working. They knew all the invocations. They knew when that bell went that they had to pretend to be asleep. But those men and women, those parents, we were prepared to put our children through that. They didn't have a normal childhood. My children, Maya said to me, she said, we never knew what we were going to come home from school to, whether it was going to be a healing session, heavy-duty meditation, or Led Zeppelin. Yeah. And it was a strange upbringing for all of those children. I remember when Victor and one of Wendy's children, they decided they wanted a witch wedding. And one of the witches was a taxi driver and drove them off. You know, they went on their honeymoon. They were only about 6. It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. There was always laughter. And I know Bernard Ball came to you with all the gossip. Yeah. You know, you'd be planning a big. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I think there are a lot of characters. I think, apart from us all being really good looking, there was an energy because they were all different, and they came from all walks of life. You didn't know, and somebody spoke about the wealthy people. Alex used to say, we work naked. You don't know what class you come from then. You know, there's no judgment as to whether you're a millionaire or a pauper, but that soul and heart sense had to be within. And I think that's one of the, I think the Temple of the Mother was a real breakthrough covenant. You know, even though we'd be planning, you know, and we'd say, including Bernard, you know, we'd say, now, can we be quiet about this, please? And sure as eggs are eggs, Geraldine would know. Yeah. But there were some really, really good characters, and they're still going, and they're still doing good work. Not in witchcraft necessarily, but they've developed their liking. You get people that are, you know, become the hermetics, work with hermetics, others with the angelic. And sometimes the craft isn't for life. It is for me, but not for everybody. Some people, it's a stepping stone onto their system of magic, what they want to study. And that's fine. It annoys me. We had a case of a man who was initiated into a really boring coven that stroked candles and priestesses' thighs and things. And he wanted to leave this coven. He wanted to join an Alexandrian group. And he was threatened with his measure. You know, they'd kept his measure, whereas Alexandrians don't. They hand the measure back. And we say, you know, you can come and go as your conscience dictates. And anyway, this man, he was threatened with his measure, and he came over from America, and he said, how do I deal with this? And I said, well, it's simple. We'll just take another measure. And so he took another measure, and then he said, I handed it back to him. And I said, what do you want to do? Do you want to burn it? Burn it on the pentacle and put it on the planes? He said, no. And of course, being in our flat, he had a big glass of wine next to him, and he just rolled his measure up, popped it in his mouth and drank the wine. And I think that's one of the things, there's so many differences that within the world of witchcraft and how you practice it, and you have to find a way that works for you. And may your covens be as interesting as mine have been. I say thank you for your questions. Blessed be. And lots of love.